I'm interested in what Goldcorp is doing about IT, kind of the disruption that is happening here, and regarding the investments that you've made in Cisco. I know that as you have the disrupt mining that's coming up, and then there's a lot of things that are happening with AI and predictive analytics. But let me just start from the beginning. Is just who are you? Yeah.
Well, my name is Luis Canepari. I'm the VP of Technology. So we don't have a true IT department. We run all the technology of the company. So I'm the head of the technology group. We have about 100 employees in my group and about 100 contractors. And we operate we produce about 2.5 million ounces of gold to the company. And then we have about, say, 16,000 employees and contractors throughout the entire company. And as you can imagine, all of them come with a device or two. And my team is here to support all of them and to provide them technology and new ways to do their jobs.
We'll get into what the initiatives you have right now, but what is a typical day of a VP of IT? I mean, what are you, is there a lot of, how much of it is tackling and blocking, and how much of it is initiatives that you're looking forward to?
We have a great team, so I have to admit that it's not as reactive as it used to be. I mean, I have a team that is dedicated of managing the day-to-day operations and like infrastructure and systems like SAP or your help desk for taking care of users, and so we have a pretty solid team that does all that. So I don't unless a critical event. My director of operations is usually between him and the director of SAP, they handle 90% of the issues, and I get to work in more strategic activities, which is great for me. We provide support in 3 languages, 7/24. So you can imagine that's why we have so many people working at the sites, because we have to. Our systems are critical to the organization, and we need to provide them, every day.
What are the strategic initiatives that
so our team is the way that we divide our strategy. We have a digital transformation strategy, and over the past couple of years, right? I mean, senior management and the board has taken a big drive, a big push towards innovation. And in the past, before, right? I mean, in the past 5 years, we put a lot of effort into building backbones, putting common technology platforms, standardizing our systems, putting more robust systems into the organization. But after, like 2 years ago, our COO, Todd White, he asked me, he said, "Look, how can we start getting more technology into the mining process? How can we start changing the way that we do mining? How we challenge the status quo, and how do we make our operations more digital, more innovative? How do we transform their mindset, right? Because we have an industry that for decades have rejected change, right? And now we're at this point. It's like, look, we're falling behind other industries. How do we leapfrog, and how do we get ahead? How do we get in front of the pack and become the most cost efficient or environmentally friendly and safe mining company in the world, right? And so once our COO start putting those challenges to our team, we start getting our team a more, I would say, ambitious strategy, because I mean they were pretty ambitious things that we put in front of us. Like, so one of the examples, like so we came up with 5 themes in our strategy. So one was the like making a very robust backbone, which we had. That included all the network, underground Wi-Fi, people, every employee in the underground or in a mine or in the pits having tracking, so we knew where everybody was in the mine at every given time. Because of safety, because of dispatching, because of fleet management, right? So we wanted for condition monitoring. So we wanted as much data from every device as possible, and everything had to be connected, right? So we started with a backbone, with a common technology platform strategy, right? So we did that. Then we also have an automation practice. So we're focusing. One of my groups is focusing on getting our mines to operate more, both autonomous, right? To replace. So the new machinery that we're acquiring is allowing us to operate. Like, for example, we just bought 2 new drills for the underground, one jumbo and one long hole, that allow us to that are fully automated, We're putting them in muscle white to start the experiment, and they're fully basically given the drill plans, and the operator doesn't need to do anything. The drill does the entire drilling by itself, and the performance is 10-15% better than the manual process that we were doing before. So that's great, but realistically, you're not going to replace your entire fleet. So we have a group that is also retrofitting the older fleet to be either operated autonomously or by teleremote when automation can be achieved with a particular old device, right? So we still want to get teleremote operating, right? I mean, I'd rather have a person operating from the admin building than underground in the mine, right? I mean, it takes time to get there. It's cost inefficient. It's less safe than work from the admin building, right? So the more we try to put them in the more we try to move those jobs as much as we can outside of from the underground, to trying to put them out of harm's way, right? So the more that we can put them in a safe area, the better. So we have that automation plan. We have an artificial intelligence group that is working in all R&D projects. So we're partnering with IBM for doing trying to take exploration and take all our exploration data, whether it's geological, metallurgic, mine data, put them all into one single artificial intelligence engine, and I start doing correlations between them, providing better search capabilities, and help our exploration team and our geology team and mining teams to have better data and the real-time answers. And we have a very ambitious target, which is by third quarter next year, third quarter next year, be able to have artificial intelligence come up with targets for drilling, for exploration targets by itself, without having to have a geologist do it. So that's our shot to the moon. We're gonna see if we can achieve it, but we're putting a lot of effort into reaching that goal. So we have artificial intelligence, the automation, the backbone and connected miner. We're also working with the technical services team in a couple interesting projects. We call one of our initiatives, we call it H20, which is trying to drive our water consumption to the minimum possible, and we're working with the technical team in doing things like eco tails or filter tailings, and how we monitor them remotely. So we're putting the technology next to it, but the technical team is figuring out how the whole process changes from to remove water from the tailings and make them more more water efficient. And then also we're working with the technical team to reduce the dilution through the entire process of mining, right? From the moment that the shovel is excavating all the way to the mill, right? So we're, for example, trying to remove the amount of ore that ends up in the waste dumps because of inaccuracy on the shovel operator, or because he didn't have the right sensor or the right data on the shovel, or because he was just because he's not doing, because we don't have proper ore sorting at some segment of the process, right? So we're trying to improve all those as well, and trying to do better ore to waste management, right? Sorry, waste to ore management.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me get back. Those are all great initiatives. Let me get back to those. But just to step back, yes. What was the, you've undertaken this ambitious initiative that you announced with Visco. There was also Barrick that also announced the initiative, the same thing also that you guys are doing with IBM. But what was the impetus? I mean, you just kind of heard about this within the last 1 to 2 years in these major announcements, making companies like digital effective. But was it just keeping competitive, or?
No, we've been doing it for 5 years. I mean, I've been in the company for 5 years, and since I arrived here, all our executives wanted us to be more innovative, right?
Yeah.
I think what changed in the last 2 years is, I think, our investors and our stakeholders have been more interested into what we're doing with innovation than before.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these announcements are a reflection of, look, we're getting a lot more questions than we ever did before into what is our plan for making our mines more modern.
Yeah.
Even the board, I mean, they're a lot more excited about innovation today than they were 5-10 years ago, right? So that change at the top, and that change from the stakeholder community, I think, is driving a lot of these announcements and partnerships, and trying to identify different ways to operate.
Do you look at other comparables, like what's happening in oil and gas, for instance,
Absolutely.
and that? And
Well,
how does it compare with what's happening generally in mining?
For example, the idea with the artificial intelligence came from oil and gas. I mean,
Yeah.
we met with some oil and gas companies that were using Watson, and that's how we decided to proceed and trying to implement what they were doing for exploration and oil and gas and replicate it here. Some of the prototypes that my team is building for some sensors on the ground, because we're also trying to partner with some companies to build additional technologies that don't exist today.
Yep.
And with those, we're trying to mimic what oil and gas have done, for example, with the Schlumberger in some sensors that they're doing for understanding their reserves, and we're trying to see if those technologies could be applicable to mining as well.
How is artificial intelligence different than, say, predictive analytics? So you have a sensor on a truck that's going through and then saying, you know, you're going off the
That's
road
great.
or something like that.
That's a great question. I think predictive analytics, I think the main difference is where is the self-learning.
Okay.
That will be, to me, the differentiator between predictive analytics and artificial intelligence, is having the machine figure out by itself how to do something, or finding a pattern that you didn't see, or you know what I mean? Like, let me give an example. When Google won against the Chinese champion of Go, right? Of the chess.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not a chess game. It's called Go. It's a very complicated,
Is it Go? Yeah.
complicated game, strategy game, right? And I seen the difference is like back, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years ago, when Deep Blue first mainframe won again a chess match against all the champions in the world, right? Somebody basically coded and put in all the analysis and all trying to do all user statistics and predictions to basically train the computer to do something. In the case where when Google's DeepMind did it, they basically gave the machine, these are the rules of the game, this is how you play, and the machine went on its own, and through the same process that a human would have gone through, like, okay, here's the rules of the game, let me practice, let me do some scenarios, and let me learn by myself, right? The machine figure out how to win the game. And I think that's the main difference, right? One, before we had with predictive analytics, you have to put in the intelligence behind it.
Yeah.
With artificial intelligence, we're expecting, and I think that's our shot to the moon, is that we're expecting the machine to come up with some of these patterns and targets by itself, by teaching them this is what we normally look for, going on your own and find these kind of things, these correlations. These are the type of things that we believe, find are indicators that gold will be in this area, and then have them, given the tribal knowledge that we have from a particular ore body, and then see if the machine can find these things by itself, right? So,
can you expand again on what Watson is doing, and then again, what is the timeline, or what's your you said again that you have like a certain deliverable by a time that you want to do with Watson?
So with Watson, what we did with IBM, we took all the data that we had at Red Lake available, right?
Yeah.
Red Lake is one of our, historical mines, right? I mean, it's been it's been mined, I don't know, 100 years. We have plenty of data.
Yeah.
Plenty of block models, plenty of tribal knowledge on the ore body, right? I mean, we know a lot about Red Lake. So we took all this data, and a lot of the exploration systems are dispersed. Like, you want to see your block model, you use Vulcan. You want to see your short-term planning, that runs on Deswik. Your geology is on Leapfrog, right? And then you want to see your drilling data is on a system called Acquire. And by the time you realize you have 5, 6, 7 systems all over the place, and they don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then you have this vault full of historical data that is PDFs, documents, printouts, all kinds of memos that from assay reports. From a historical assay report. I mean, you have all information sitting there in a big ball, right? And it's not even digitalized, right? So our plan was, well, we can digitalize all the data. We can take all these databases that we have. We can put them all together. You also have all the geometal, all the metallurgic data and database with, from the processing plant. You have all your mine data from your short-term and long-term plans, right? So we figure why don't we try to feed all this into Watson and see what we can come up with? And basically, we start playing with it for the first 6 months, and say, okay, before we start really committing a lot of money into it, let's see what we can do with the data. And we put it all into this machine, and really, the first achievement was like, oh my God, now I can correlate the drilling data with the with the block models, put them all together. I can search faster. I can take unstructured data and put it into it, and it will correlate it with the stuff that I'm searching. So I can be searching for a drill, for a particular drill site, and I can see all the memos or anything that has been reading about it, and it will already do extracts and try to give information in a way that I can consume it faster. So our geologists in Red Lake are like, oh my God, this is pretty exciting, right? I mean, we have data faster, and we can do these queries 10 times faster than we did before. And then on top of that, the machine also have a lot more capabilities, right? So our systems, the size of the systems that we have in-house allowed us to do maybe a couple block models at a time, the queries. I mean, we didn't have like a massive engine behind it so by moving all this to the cloud and to their system, to Bluemix, right? We were able to do these queries 10 times faster and throughout the entire data pool. So this is like, now we're talking about big data, right? Now you have everything there, and now you have an engine that can actually handle it, right? Before we had the data, but we could only analyze it in pieces. Right now, it's like putting it all into this big, massive supercomputer that allows you to query it, 10 times faster, right? And the querying capabilities and the conversion, the search capabilities for unstructured data is pretty fascinating. And now we're in a phase. Okay, now we liked what we saw, so now we're going to go to phase 2 and see if we can, expand that and see if we can actually train the machine to learn from our geologists, see what we can teach it, and see if they find patterns, right? And then with those patterns, find a target.
Where do you see this technology 5 years out? When you looked at oil and gas and what they've been able to achieve with this, what do you see that? How do you see this working?
I think oil and gas is probably a year ahead of us.
Okay.
I think we'll catch quickly. I think within 5 to 10 years, we'll find that all these technologies you'll have a geomine metal system that handles the entire spectrum of data for the mine, and it will be one single repository with everything. And one single system that takes all this data and give you a full, a true understanding of that ore body. And I don't think that we're going to be able to. People, when we presented this the first time, they're like, oh, are you planning on removing the geologist from it? Like, no, what I'm trying to do is have the geologists stop doing manual work. I want them to be able to take their knowledge of the ore body exponentially and be able to understand and find gold a lot faster than they would normally do, and with a lot higher success ratio than they did before. So again, our plan is not to eliminate the geologists that we have. Our plan is to make them really successful at what they do. And it's a very ambitious plan, but we'll see. I mean, we're just doing one site. We're experimenting with it. If this is successful, we'll take it to all the other sites in the company, and I think that could give us even a competitive advantage with in M&A. Once you understand, like if we can understand an ore body faster and better than anybody else, look, we can take data from when we're evaluating or when we're looking at a junior that's asking for our investment. I mean, if we can do these assessments faster, we could probably be investing faster and get different valuations that we'll normally do, and hopefully even make some ore bodies that are not being mined today more appealing, because now you understand them better.
Do you have examples or know juniors that are using IBM Watson or using this type of
No, I think
tools?
we're the first ones.
Okay.
I think we're the first ones to do this. I think I heard of other mining companies that have been looking into artificial intelligence for different things, but I believe that we're the first ones that did Watson. But again, that would be a better question for IBM. I didn't ask them to disclose their other clients, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. What is the I just like when I hear about everybody talks about kind of like an integrated mines. So then because you
Yeah.
have all of these pieces that are moving
Yeah.
and everything has to react. But and you just talk about you have all of these different systems. It seems like your entire work would be getting systems to talk to one another. You have an SAP system. You have all of these geological
Yeah.
modeling systems as well too. How do you choose? I mean, is
Well,
that your work?
well, that's
Making it talk to one another? And,
yeah, that's pretty
yeah.
much it. I think that the you asked me before, like, what is the role of the of the VP of technology of Goldcorp,
Yeah.
right? And I would say three words. Uh, One is the broker. I help my mine managers identify the right technology, and I broker with the technology vendors and bring them on board, right? So I spent quite a bit of time, finding those technologies and doing those deals so the company can bring them on board, right? I mean, it's not
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of technology companies out there, so making those decisions, those strategic decisions, is it's a big part of the role, right? And so that's the first one. Then we're integrators, like you said, right? I mean, make them all work together is almost a full-time job for the team, right? I mean, and the way that we're structured tries to foster that, right? I mean, trying to help us keep all the systems working together, right? It's a big part of the job. And the last one, which is my favorite one, I think that I'm the orchestrator, because I have all my mine managers that don't necessarily know what the other mines are doing in terms of technology. So once we find good technology that is really working at one of our sites, I think a big part of the role is to orchestrate to make sure that the other mine managers are also looking at this technology and implementing it into their sites, and making sure that we all going roughly at the same pace. And that I don't like to see some of my mines failing behind in terms of technology. I mean, it's pretty sad when you have like one mine that is super modern and one that is falling behind 5-10 years behind the pack, right? So I see a big part of my role is to keep the pack somewhat together, and then all kind of pushing in the same direction in terms of technology and innovation, right? I mean, it's if let's say, for example, if we're investing in Watson and somebody else in our mine was investing in our sites, we're investing in Google or in Microsoft, right? I mean, they're all great tools, and they're all great, and we're experimenting with all of them. But I like to experiment. Like, I wouldn't like to do the same experiment with 3 or 4 different plants and spend the same money. I think we should all have a coordinated effort on where we want to invest and how we want to invest. That way, when somebody's successful, it replicates across the portfolio of assets that we have, and then we all not putting all our eggs into one single idea, right? That we're experimenting with multiple ideas and seeing which ones work better. So, for example, most of our being very successful this year on tele-remote and automation and putting dispatch systems, fleet management systems for the underground and properly tracking people underground. So now we're going to replicate that in the rest of the Canadian mines. In Peñasquito, we're being successful with the underground, with the open pit autonomous drills. We're going to be replicating that as well. We're being successful in Eleanor with our experiment for ecotels. We're going to be replicating that in the other sites, and that's the plan, right? I mean, don't do everything at once. Put in your a balanced portfolio of technology projects that you're going to do, and then depending on the success, just figure out what is your roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years.
Any surprising outcomes from Watson?
Not yet. I mean, we're first phase. I think really, I'm surprised. Well, yes, there has been a surprise. How fast the team at Red Lake wanted to, like, how interested they got into using it. Sometimes when you have these initiatives that are corporate's idea and that you're asking the sites to take part on them, majority of the times you need to do a lot of change management and communications and I have to say that Todd had the idea, our COO, but Maura, who is Mornall, who is the head of exploration in Red Lake, took this project, and this is her baby. This is not an IT project at all. This is the exploration team at Red Lake's project. We're there to help them implement it. But this is one time where I noticed that the customer really got excited about it and wants to drive it.
What is a skill set that would be needed by the geologists of the future?
Well, that's changing a bit.
Yeah.
Certainly more computer savvy. It's funny, we had a couple, so we were very worried about the interface because when we were doing the pilot, the interface, as you can imagine, is a new product, the interface is pretty raw. And I was a bit worried, and some of the younger geologists, they started doing their own code to do queries themselves without having the interface. And we don't care, the interface is too slow. And they just plug in right into Watson and doing queries right into the database, into the artificial intelligence, right? So that was another surprise. Like the newer, younger, these millennials are coming into the organization, right? Are pretty computers. They know code, It's and that makes a world of a difference, right? I mean, they don't need the fancy screen anymore. They don't need the drop-down bottoms. They don't need all that. They're just going right there and querying,
Yeah.
So that was pretty. That was interesting.
Tell
Surprising.
Okay. Tell me about the first initiative that you talked about was
Yeah.
the linking of Cisco and then making sure there was tracking everywhere.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Oh, we started that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have to admit that we started that probably a decade ago, even before I started here. We're starting putting proper telecommunications everywhere. I mean, even my predecessor realized that.
Sorry, again, you said, what are you putting everywhere?
Fiber optics and
Fiber
Wi-Fi.
optics,
Yeah,
okay.
that's been.
Hmm.
Look, we realized that if you were building a mine, even my predecessor was pretty conscious about the need for telecommunications everywhere, and with the IoT, with the appearance of new sensors everywhere. I mean, the amount of requests we're getting to expand our network, we're becoming. It's becoming clear that was a need of the company, that we had to have a stable network, a pretty robust backbone, and that we did a lot of work to improve that backbone throughout the company.
Don't you have you'll have standards I don't know what Hitachi's is, but you'll have MineStar from Caterpillar, but then I guess you'll also have a truck or something that you will buy, or a piece of equipment as well too, that'll have the IoT. So you would have those two systems talking to one another.
Well, that's challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the OEMs are starting to come around.
Okay.
I remember our first meeting with I won't mention which OEM, but the individual said, "Well, you have to use our access points." And I said, "No, so buy." And the guy said, "Well, what do you mean by you said you were going to buy this product?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I changed my mind. We're not. Either you open your standard and you communicate through our network, or we're not going to be able to do business with you." And they were surprised, and I think a lot of mining companies started doing that and saying, "Look, we're not going to continue to allow you to hold us hostage, and basically lock your systems the way that we can't interoperate." So I think that the 4 major OEM manufacturers are getting the message, and a lot of the latest stuff that I've been seeing for all of them, they're starting to open their. They give you the recommendation.
Yeah.
But they're also accepting the fact that the majority of us run networks like Cisco or Radiant, we are pretty standardized in one, and they're starting to open up to a particular. They're starting to open up, and I think interoperability is becoming the word of the day across mining. Right? It's like, look, we want all of this. We are never going to have a uniform fleet. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, prices changes, technologies change. Sometimes you're buying one OEM. 5 years from now, economical conditions change. You want to buy something different. Look, relationships change, whatever. But it's very hard to say, look, I'm going to have my entire fleet to be one single manufacturer, right?
Yeah.
So, look, these providers need to open up, and the pressure will continue to be there. And I think also fleet management is one area where technology will improve significantly within the next 5 years. It have to. I mean, that to me is one of the most. We talk sometimes about their interfaces, their user capabilities, reporting capabilities are pretty back. I think we'll be seeing, with automation coming, we'll be an artificial intelligence happening. I think the fleet management algorithms will start to significantly be improved.
I'm surprised. I mean, just on a superficial level, fleet management seems to do the most marketing when you're at a show, or they seem to talk it up the most.
Yeah, but when you go down to the sites, they are not there yet.
Yeah.
They
What's
could, well, let's just say they're not yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was the most advanced piece of technology that we had forever,
Yeah.
for years, and now suddenly with artificial intelligence, all these things coming, you're like, well, that seems to be a pretty good area that we could take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the major OEMs, you mentioned MindStar,
Yeah.
Modular,
Mm-hmm.
Wenco, what is the other one? Jigsaw. I'd
Yeah.
be surprised if the 3-4 major fleet management systems out there in the market don't start utilizing artificial intelligence themselves and coming up with better ways to do their process and to better integrate with the autonomous system.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point hopefully you wouldn't even need to be dispatching anymore. I mean, the system will tell you exactly what to do.
What do you do with just like a pickup truck as far as IoT, for instance, on the site? I mean, did you track anything?
We track them.
on
We
it?
track them.
Okay.
As we don't do high precision GPS on them. I mean, we don't need them to be to the centimeter, right? I mean, we just put in a normal tracking and a normal low precision GPS, and we track them through the mine, and we want to know where they are, especially in the underground. I mean, you want to know when you're coordinating traffic within the mine, you want to know where everybody is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every piece of equipment should be tracked. So we're doing that, but I mean, we focus most of the condition monitoring effort, like most of the higher precision we put in is for the heavy equipment. The pickup trucks is
I was just saying,
it's like every other auxiliary equipment.
I was just, if you have a piece of, I don't know, it could be a pump or something like that, you have a piece of equipment and then you recognize there would be a need to put an IoT on it for whatever reason, but there's no vendor that's attached to it. What tools do you usually look at, or how would you put it on, and then how do you get it talking?
We get creative.
Yeah.
Well,
Does that happen often, like in terms of making IoT,
It happens often, but when you have something that really doesn't have any manufacturer configured, I mean, you should assume that piece may need to be replaced.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
you're maybe talking about something like 10 years, 15 years old, right? 20 years old. So you may want to talk about like, hey, do we really want to continue maintaining that particular spare part, right? But we have a good relationship with Rockwell, with Emerson, Alan Bradley and Bradley Rockwell and Emerson Schneider. I mean, we have great relationship with them, and we usually, for instrumentation, they're usually pretty good at helping us with that. In fact, right now, even this week, I just did a new deal with one of them. I don't like to endorse vendors, but one of them signed a deal with us to go to Peñasquito, our largest open pit mine, and to look at all the obsolete instrumentation equipment that we have and start putting a roadmap for the next 3 years, trying to get them, some sections of the mine that we could benefit from data from them. We're going to try to figure out how to make them into integrated our historian system and to provide us better data. We're also looking at standardizing our historian system throughout the next 2 years. So we're doing also an effort to get a better, to get more sensors connected to the database so we can start doing better reporting on it using Power BI.
What about on-body sensors? Is goldcorp doing any work there?
Yeah, we do. Well, you mean like wearables or?
Yeah, wearables. What data do you gather?
Right now, we're mostly location.
Okay.
I mean, obviously for safety reasons, we want to know where everybody's underground, right? And also once we start putting, interesting enough, we start putting in tracking underground, and then we start figuring out if there's an area that didn't have anybody, we shut down ventilation, so we start saving dollars. So, it's a safety component of it, but it's also very interesting, economical factor after it, right? So, so right now we track down people underground in the majority of our mines. We want to have that fully deployed everywhere. In one of our mines in Argentina, we're remotely tracking the chief of the crew carries a portable gas meter that's connected to the Wi-Fi. So we're also doing gas monitoring real time throughout the mine. As they're walking and doing their shifts, they can monitor their area. And that's also been an interesting safety enhancement that we did. What else?
Do you take advantage that everybody has a phone these days? Do you have that expectation when you say they can put an app on or something?
We do, but we're still don't allow the operators to carry them. I mean, we're more worried about their safety than this, so we're trying to give them tablets instead. So I prefer them to have a tablet that, allows them that we can lock more than a normal phone, and we can just tell them these are the only things that you can use while you're on the ground. So, for example, this last month, we deployed 30 tablets we mount them on the heavy equipment, basically on the scoops, on the loaders, and on the trucks in a Moswite, and we connect them to the dispatch system. So now they can be telling how many tons are they moving, and they can input some data. But with the tablet, it was a lot easier because these are the 2 or 3 apps that you can use, and that's it. With the phone, sometimes, we're looking at some better. We don't have the right tools today to do that. We're more sophisticated on the tablet size, so we're starting with the tablets and seeing how this works, and then at some point I think that we'll let more phones on the ground.
How is Goldcorp doing with teleconferencing?
It's a favorite subject. We're a fully Cisco shop. We have Java and WebEx and pretty much deployed everywhere. Every employee have a WebEx account, which is pretty incredible. And it's interesting. This year we started putting video conferencing at the huddle rooms, so the mine manager could address.
Sorry, the
huddle rooms.
Yeah. Okay.
Where the miners before they go underground, they collect, and we're being getting more and more requests to put in video conferencing there too, so the mine managers could talk to their employees all at once, because they take turns to go to different huddle rooms, and we're trying to make them more, more integrated. So, but yeah, we have video conferencing everywhere. We have hundreds of video rooms across the company.
What was the key to making video conferencing, rolling it out, or getting more adoption?
The cost came down significantly over the years. So, you buy a phone. Phone had video conferencing before. It didn't have. Before it was so much more expensive to have one with a camera. Now it just comes normal. And now with even the computers, a lot of our younger workforce don't even want to have a phone anymore. They just use their voice over IP phone on their computer. So it's I think couple drivers through the use of one, the younger generation that is more used to using their computers and their cell phones as their communication device, and utilizing voice over IP as their go-to system. The full integration between your video conference system, WebEx, and your computer. How all the devices now interoperate between them is another great factor. And I have to say, the cost, right? These tools are significantly cheaper than they were when 20 years ago, when I started my career, right?
How are your air miles?
My air miles?
Yeah. How much traveling are you doing? Less traveling?
I think so. Traveling is costly, not only on cost per ticket, but the amount of hours that you are wasted, right? To go to Argentina, for example, to go to our mine in Cerro Negro, takes me 2 days to get there. 2 days in the site, 2-3 days in the site, and then 2 days back. I waste a whole week of my time. By the time I come back, I'm jet lagged. You have all that. You feel terrible.
Yeah.
And the amount of hours that you really had that were useful are limited, right? So I'm not saying that you're going to remove traveling completely, but I noticed a reduction in my travel time since we put in video conferencing at least 50% from 5 years ago.
What is the H2O initiative?
H20.
H20. I apologize.
So that's our CEO's. Our CEO is very big into. He's very excited about and reducing our environmental footprint. And as a company, we're very we really care about bringing our environmental footprint down. And the CEO came with this campaign and said, look, we need to push all our mines to lower our water waste. So to the best of our capacity, we have to make sure that we're the most water efficient company in the world, right? And so he came up with the H20 campaign, and every mine manager and every department, we all working towards bringing those numbers down. And looking at water is always a problem. Either you don't have enough water, you may have too much water. the water may not be clean enough. I mean, you always have a problem with water, right? I mean, either, whether it's too much or too little,
Mm-hmm.
either you don't have enough or you don't have, or you have too much, or you have to be dewatering all the time, which is costing you money, or, whatever it is, right? But you're always managing water, and sometimes we see the amount of the cubic meters of water that we move on a year on any of our mines compared to the amount of tons that we move. You start feeling that you're more like a water company than a dirt moving company, right? Right. So we're putting a lot of effort into it, and probably our biggest driver is Ecotels, trying to reduce the amount of water that our tailings require, and that's in any of our mines, that's the biggest chunk of water, right? So obviously our technical services team is putting a lot of effort into reinventing how these tailings need to be operated, so to reduce that consumption. And it's a good practice, right? The less water you have in the tailings, the more stable they are, the less troubles you get. Safer, I think, more cost efficient, and like I said, right, lower environmental footprint, right? So.
What is your office, your VPIT, what are you providing strategically for helping with the H20?
So we have a couple of things that we're doing. One, we're putting more sensors in every pump, every water meter, everything to track down the flow. So my team can help towards this initiative by helping better monitor and understand the entire water flow cycle of the company, right, of one of our mines, right? So you take the mine and you start understanding where all the water is going. So we have the system. We have historians, we have sensors, we have IoT, we have Wi-Fi. I mean, you have all the pieces of the puzzle to then perfectly understand how the water is being consumed. So that's how we're helping the environmental department and the technical services team to then do we provide them the data to then do the analysis and to help. So we want to continue putting sensors everywhere to understand the water flows, and then the other thing we do too is like. For example, for tailings, we're helping them monitor the tailings and putting the sensors there. So whatever the technical services team needs for doing those projects, we're providing the technology behind the scenes to either track it, monitor it, or measure it.
How do you get this information to the organization that needs it? How do you put together dashboards? How do you put together the reporting for your organization?
So we have, in the past, we had this vision of like this massive enterprise data warehouse, right? And I think that was like, keep laughing at me. I think it's like, back in 1980s, right? And the EDW, right? The enterprise data warehouse. And I think we changed over time, and now we buy tools like Microsoft Power BI to do, they connect to any database out there, and we go right to the source of data. Instead of trying to build all these interfaces to bring them to this big box, and then from there do the reporting, and we spent all the time in the world doing interfaces. We now trying to figure out how to do the connectors to these systems, bring the data into the Power BI, and then display it. And look, that tool, we've been very successful with it. It's very low cost and very intuitive, and changing customer utilization, adoption. Because before they would be calling us all the time to build into the dashboards. Now, the mine managers are hiring their own Power BI reporters and put them in there, and it's very easy to use. So we train people to use them, and then a couple months later, they were doing their own dashboards, they were doing their own reports, and they were doing their own presentations, and also the fact that you can expose it fairly easy in your intranet through SharePoint. That also makes it a very cool tool. That look, you can have all this data for water, for example, and now you can build a water dashboard, and you put it in your intranet, and anybody in the mine can see what is your current performance towards that target, right? So whether it's water, energy consumption, whether it's safety metrics, production metrics, day-to-day operations. Any KPI that we're trying to identify, the more that you bring them in and that you can display them into a consumable or in an easy-to-understand fashion, I think that's drive behavior. So I'm very passionate about that. So you're touching a very, it's very close to my heart.
What are the KPIs, the high-level KPIs that you talk to the board about, and then talk about your operating officer? What do you?
I think we have KPIs at every level, right? Obviously, the COO cares about, safety and the tons, right? He wants to see how many tons were moved from the mine, how many were milled, how many ounces were produced on a particular day, month, year. Compliance against plan. those kind of KPIs are the ones that the CEO will look like. From a safety perspective, he will look at things like all-in frequency, all injury frequency rate, lost time incidents per site, potential fatal occurrences indicators, right? I mean, he likes to see anything that have, any of the KPIs from safety is usually one of the big things that we look on our weekly management meetings. We look at safety metrics, we look at production metrics by site. The environmental team looks at power and water, like how much energy we're consuming and how much water we're consuming depending on the site.
You do a mix. I assume that you send out all these units will have emails that'll go out, but then you'll also have a dashboard that will exist somewhere
We're
for
trying to eliminate the email going out to site. We're trying to just put in a place in the internet where you can just go in and click. So instead of sending the files, hey, here's where you can find the dashboards, and then when we're doing those meetings, we just pull out the dashboard itself, and that's how we talk about, we can drill down on whatever, if you have an indicator that is in red, you drill down and you start seeing what cost it, and so it's becoming a little bit less PDF.
The strategic initiatives as you go forward, what are you thinking you're going to be looking at for the return on investment for like the IBM piece? And it's going to be the completion of the projects, I guess.
I think there are different projects, right? I mean, I see projects that have a clear IRR, right? I mean, the automation of the drills.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. We can put in the first drill, come up with a baseline against the manual drill, and you see how much performance improvement you attain, and you can extrapolate and figure out what is your business case. And those are, those are a lot more tangible to do, right? Mm-hmm. But then we also have a bucket like these artificial intelligence things, which are more research and development. I mean, they're never been proven. We don't really know, and you have to be a little bit more, let's say, riskier. I mean, less risk averse, perhaps. Right, and you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to put in some money for doing these R&D experiments, and hopefully you fail fast so you can move on to the next initiative. And if you're not failing and it's something that is pretty good, then put in the right money and create the proof of concept at the baseline to then estimate how much money you're really gonna, what is going to be what is the return that this project is going to yield, and to bring it back into you, right? So,
I think that's a nice place to end it. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
That was really great. Thank you very much.